everyone, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Nicole. I am a STOT trained Pilates instructor as well as a personal trainer, and today I have a Pilates Mini Flows class for you that is going to focus in on the hips. And what comes along with working the hip joint is we're going to get glutes, we're going to get all those deep internal rotators, hip flexors, lots of good stuff today. Now, if you are new to Pilates Mini Flows, the best way to describe the structure of this class is to picture a more traditional Pilates mat class that flows from start to finish. What we do in these is we basically take a little snippet out of that flow and we turn it into a circuit. So you go through the quick flow, it's a couple minutes long, rest, and then repeat. So we're going to start on the mat. We have 3 different flows today. We're going to start on the mat for the first 2, and then we'll come to standing for the third. You don't need any equipment except in the third flow. When we come to standing, you're going to want something to put your hands on for balance. So a stool, a chair with a high back, a kitchen counter, a wall, something. I'm going to use a stool. I just don't have it on camera just yet. Optional, you could wear ankle weights if maybe this is your second, third time doing it and you want to amp up the challenge, but it's going to be plenty challenging without ankle weights, so totally optional there. So we'll do quick warm up, our 3 flows, and we'll finish up with a cool down with a couple stretches. The warm-up is going to go right into our first flow. So I want to just give you a preview of that first flow so you know what to expect. It's very mobility focused. We'll be in a 90-90 position, and we're going to start with a windshield wiper, keeping the feet in place and the knees go side to side. We then hold the knees to one side, and we're going to do internal to external rotation through that back leg. We'll hold parallel, we'll lift and lower. We'll hold that lift, and we'll go back to internal to external rotation, but at a hover. So you'll tap down instead of lifting up. From there, we're going to hold parallel and we're going to pulse back, and then we turn that into a sweep. So you push back and then you kick it forward, getting the hip flexors to fire, hip extension, hip flexion, and we finish by holding in that hip flexion and giving it a little pulse. Now, our first flow is longer, and because it is more mobility focused, we're just going to do that one twice. So we do it through on one side, we repeat it on the other side, and then we move on. The second and third flows are shorter, so we will complete them 4 times. Okay, kind of store that in the back of your mind. Let's start with our warm-up. I want you to come into a tabletop position, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, and I want you to bring the knees together and pull the shins apart. And then from here, you're just going to give me a little rock back and forward. So we are maintaining internal rotation within the hip joint, and we're just rocking it back. Doesn't have to be big. And rocking it forward, reaching the tailbone back and forward. Pretty normal for this to feel a little sticky when we do it internally rotated. One more. And then I want you to pause and we're going to switch it. So now I want you to bring your feet together and I want you to separate your knees wide so we're a little externally rotated in the hip joint, and go back to that rock, back and forward. When you rock forward, you can bring your hips a little farther forward than the knees, working towards extension through the hips. So we're going to do a little combo, kind of building off of this. Give me one more rock back and forward. And then I want you to pause, and I want you to keep the knees wide, but maybe walk them in a smidge. And I want you to cross your right ankle over the left heel, okay? So you're crossed at the ankles, right is on top. From here, we're going to come up to a full kneel, open through the front of the hip joints, squeeze your bum. We're going to send the hips back. We're going to bring our hands down, shifting forward into tabletop. And now I want you to pull the shins across, coming to internal rotation. So feet are wider than the knees. Now we're going to cross the ankles again, but this time I want you to bring your left foot over the right. And let's come up, squeezing through the glutes, open through the front of the hips. Send the hips back, hands to the mat. You know the deal. We're going to continue moving like that. Pull the shins apart, find that internal rotation. And when you cross them, put right over left. Come up to a full kneel, open across the front of the hip joint. Hands to the mat. Pull the shins apart, internal rotation. Last time here, cross the ankles left on top. Come up to that full kneel. And then I want you to bring it down. Come to a center tabletop. So I want your shins parallel. I'm going to turn to face you. Shins parallel, knees are hips distance apart. Send the bum back to your heels so we're in a hinge, and we're going to take our hands off the floor. From this hinge position, we are going to come up to a kneel. You're going to step your right foot out wide at an angle, and we're going to lunge over to the right. Bring it back up, knees down, bum to your heels. Same thing, but we're going to step out to the left, opening up through the hips. So this is where we finish our warm-up. We are going to come into our first flow after this, but our first flow, it really is sort of a continuation of a warm-up because it is so mobility focused. One more time each side here. And from here, we're going to come to seated. Okay, so to set up for this first flow, let's see, how should I do it? We are going to have our left shin forward and our right shin back. So your legs are making opposing 90-degree angles, okay? Now you have options if you're really tight through the hips. First option, try it with your feet in a little bit. And so you're kind of like opposing triangles instead of 90-degree angles. Other thing you can do is you can prop this hip up on a pillow, okay? If you bring it up a little higher, it's going to be easier. Now in this 90-90 position, looking over this left shin, we're going to keep the feet where they are, and we're just going to windshield wiper, flopping the knees to the other side. Now to create space, if you are tight, you can lean back and you can keep your fingertips on the floor as much as needed. To advance it, you can reach the arms forward. Let me get my timer going and we will start. All right, let's go. So try to keep the feet where they are. So lean back as far as needed to accomplish that and drop your knees to the other side. So now we're in the same 90-90 position facing the other way. And bring it back over. Oh, I'm tight. I definitely need to lean back nice and far on this. So we are going to hold looking over our left shin, okay? And the focus will be on the back right leg. We'll do internal to external. So next time you windshield wiper looking over your left shin, open through this back right hip. Let's come into internal to external. So you're going to lift the foot up, and then you're going to lift the knee up. So foot stays on the mat as the knee lifts, then knee stays on the mat as the foot lifts. We're seeing the foot and the knee lift and lower, but the movement is originating within the hip joint. So really picture that thigh rotating within the hip joint. Stay open across the front of this back hip. So shin is going to stay parallel to the floor up next, and we will lift and lower the whole leg as one. All right, let's go. So keep that leg parallel. Exhale. Whole leg lifts up and lowers. You might need to walk your hands out a little farther to give yourself some space. Stay open through the front of the hip joint. So think of reaching long and away and up. Small hover. Try not to sink down into the bottom waist as you do this. We're going to do a hold up next. It'll be quick. You'll just lift that leg to a hover and hold it there. All right, let's go. Hold. Just 15 seconds. You can do it. So we're going to go back to internal to external rotation, but we're going to do it from this hover. So knee will tap down and foot will tap down. Same thing we were doing earlier, except tapping down instead of lifting up. Let's go. Knee taps the floor. Foot taps the floor. Internally rotating, externally rotating. These are probably very small movements, and that's okay. I know it can be frustratingly small. Stay with it. Stay engaged to your core. So up next, we are done with the little rotations. We're going to hold parallel, and you're just going to pulse back. All right, hold parallel, little pulse back, squeezing into your bum, back, back. Now you squeeze into the glutes, not into your lower back, so stay engaged to the core. So we're moving into hip extension, hip extension. Up next, we'll move from that kick into extension into hip flexion, sweeping the leg forward and coming to sit on our bum more squarely. Right now we're leaning, we'll come upright. So let's go from that kick back position. You're going to swing your right leg forward to a hover, firing through those hip flexors, and then swing it back. Maybe you do this part without bringing your fingertips to the floor, but you can absolutely always bring those fingertips down when we kick back behind us. Going to stay on this one a little longer. Remember, you just do this flow once either side, so I know it's a longer one, but it's one and done on either side. You have one more variation to go. We'll hold with the leg forward out of hover, and you'll just pulse up. Stay tall through the spine as that leg comes forward. All right, kick it forward, hold, and just give me a little pulse up with that leg. Pulse up. Stay tall through the spine. Open through the chest, little pulses. Up, up. You can do it. Firing through those hip flexors. Reach long through the heel. Your leg is straight. Under 15 seconds, you can do it. Woo! 30 seconds of these are tough. I know. Almost there. Oh, and rest. So kick this leg back behind you, coming into the 90-90 position. So we're just going to start right from the top with that windshield wiper. This time, though, we'll end facing the other direction. We're just going to repeat that whole thing on the left side. So let me just scoot. You can lean back as much as necessary. Fingertips can be on the floor for support. Try to keep your feet in the same position as we windshield wiper so that we end up, let's go, in that exact position, just over to the other side. You can lean back to accommodate the movement if you're feeling tight, which I definitely am. Advanced, though, you can do this no hands, reaching both arms forward as you windshield wiper. That can be something to work towards. So this time, we're going to stop looking over the right shin and we'll focus on the back left leg. So next time you're in 90-90 looking over your right shin, let's go into the internal to external rotation. So the knee stays down as the foot lifts up, then the foot stays down as the knee lifts up. Fingertips can be on the floor, kind of over to the right a little bit. And remember, if this is not working for you, try sitting this right hip up on a pillow. Elevating it can help. We're going to hold this back leg parallel. Up next, lifting and lowering. We still got another 15 seconds though here. Now, as the thigh rotates within the hip joint, don't move the hip. So I don't want you rocking your pelvis forward. I just want the leg moving within the hip joint. All right, now let's hold that leg parallel. You might need to walk forward a little bit. And we lift that leg and lower. Whole leg lifts and lowers. Whoo, it is small. I feel like I'm barely getting it off the ground. Work like this, really dialing in on the hip joint, so good for our bodies. You know, a lot of lower back pain is actually associated with limited hip mobility. So working on hip mobility can help low back pain. All right, hold. So lift it up to a hover, just hold 15 seconds. You're open through the front of the hip joint, so don't let the legs start to creep forward. We're pressing back, active into the glutes. We're gonna go back to internal, external rotation, but from the hover. So you'll rotate down. Let's go. Knee taps the floor, foot taps the floor. Internal, external, it's small. Up next, we'll still hold at a hover, parallel though, and we'll pulse kick back. All right, hold parallel, little pulse back. As if you were trying to straighten your leg behind you a little bit. Kick it back. Kick it back. You're squeezing into your glutes, not arching into the lower back. Up next, we'll swing it from this back position into a hip flex position, swinging the leg forward at a hover. Let's go. As we swing it forward to a hover, arms reach forward, tall through the spine. You can lean back a little bit. If you are pretty mobile through the hips, try to stay upright through the torso, as upright as possible. Maybe fingertips come to the floor when you swing the leg back behind you. Maybe you try it with hands off the ground. Lean forward, kick back. Upright, kick forward. Really get the leg straight so you're firing the quads, top of the leg. Reach it long. We're approaching those final 30 seconds. We'll be in that flex position with the leg forward and we'll just pulse it up and down. Let's go. Little lift up, up, straight through the legs, so firing through the quads. So think reach long through the heel and up, up. Now try not to round back through your spine like this. Try to stay as tall as possible so we really get hip flexors Working with lower abdominals, lift up. So almost think of leaning forward into it. I know I'm not leaning forward, I'm actually leaning back, but the intention is forward towards your leg, almost there. Oh, and done. Find a butterfly position. You can kind of rock it side to side. Okay, so you get some time to recover here, and I'm going to show you a preview of our second flow. We're going to be in a tabletop position for the second flow. If your wrists bother you on straight arms, you have options. You can do knuckles, or you can come down onto your forearms. So we're going to start in a donkey kick position, and we're going to windshield wiper our shin, internal, external rotation. We're then going to hold external rotation. We're going to lower and lift that leg. We're then going to hold internal rotation, and again, lower and lift the leg. We're then going to move from that internal rotation up and out, swinging the leg into a hydrant position, and then back across. And then we just finish by holding the hydrant position a little easier. Hold it with the bent knee. If you want to make it harder, you'll kick the leg straight and hold that straight leg at a hover out to the side. So this is a 2-minute, 15-second long flow. We're going to do it 4 times, alternating sides. Let's go. So we will start with our right leg as the focus. So we're going to come into a tabletop position, spread out through those fingers, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, and then we're going to bring this right knee up to a donkey kick position. You're engaged through the glutes, neutral spine, also engaged through the core so you don't arch into the lower back. Pointed through the ankle, and we're going to windshield wiper. So you're going to go across over to the left and then out to the right, finding external rotation and internal rotation. As we do this, we are keeping the hip bones square to the floor, okay? So you're not moving your pelvis, you're moving the leg within the pelvis. Try to keep that knee lifted, don't let it drop down. Now coming up, you're going to hold external rotation and we'll lift and lower, which means the foot will be over to the left. All right, with the foot over to the left, we lower and lift. So it's kind of like we're crossing at the ankles. And then you lift up into that externally rotated donkey kick position. So you're thinking of wrapping that right thigh outward, but pulling the right hip down so that it stays level with the left. We're going to do the same thing, but we'll do it internally rotated up next. All right, lift up to donkey kick. Now find internal rotation and we lower and lift. So it's kind of like right knee to left calf and then lift it up. So now you're thinking of wrapping the thigh inward, but hips are staying square. If you're on straight arms, I want you to make sure you're unlocked through the elbows, just a little invisible softness. Now we're going to take this internal rotation into external rotation and a sweep into hydrant. So your right knee swings back, kind of crosses over to the left, and then it swings up and out to the right. Really moving within that hip joint. We will finish with a hold in the hydrant position with that right knee up and out to the right. You can do it keeping your knee bent, or you can kick the leg straight to advance it. Let's hold. Option to kick the leg straight. Keep it lifted. It's just 15 seconds. You got it. If straight is too much, bend the knee, okay? Think of reaching it. Lean a little over to the right. Get a little lighter through your left hand. Woo! And rest. You can roll out through the wrists. You have 30 seconds to rest. So we're going to repeat that whole thing on the other side. I'm just going to turn to face the other direction. For the sake of the camera, you don't have to though. All right, again, if wrists start to get cranky, you can pop up onto knuckles or you can come to forearms, but try to do whatever you did on the first side. So we're going to find tabletop. Left knee is going to come up, gently pointed through the ankle. You're in this donkey kick position. Start with that windshield wiper. So the human body has more external rotation available to it than internal rotation. So the movement is probably going to, well, it is going to be smaller when you pull the foot out to the left, and it'll be a little bigger. Maybe it might feel a little easier when you windshield wiper it across to the right. We're going to hold with that foot across to the right, external rotation, and we'll lift and lower up next. Let's go. Hold the external rotation, lower so it's like ankles are crossing, and you lift, really squeezing into the glutes, into that kind of side butt area. I I like lifting on the exhale, engaging through the abdominal wall. Up next, we're going to do the same lift and lower, but internally rotated, so foot will be out to the left. So let's go. Lift up to the donkey kick, find internal rotation, and then maintaining that internal rotation, we lower and lift. So the knee is kind of lowering down towards the back of the calf. Again, still squeezing into the glutes every time that leg lifts up. We'll turn it into that kind of swinging motion up next. All right, so crosses and then swings up and out into your hydrant. Swing it back and across, up and out. Think of putting a little extra weight in your left hand over the right, because the tendency is going to be to lean over to our supporting side, and we don't want that. We want to stay centered. Hold is coming up, bent or straight leg. Hold. Level 1, knee stays bent. Level 2, kick it straight. Maybe you even take your right hand off the floor to help you stay centered. Think of reaching the leg over to the left. Woo, and rest. You can roll out those wrists. Okay, we're halfway there. We're going to do it one more time each side. So I'm going to turn back around. Right leg will be the focus. Focus is in on the hips, but we want to be cognizant of the form of the upper body in the position. So push the mat away so we're stable through the shoulders in your tabletop. Then bring that right knee up to hip height. Gently pointed through the ankle, and let's go. Windshield wiper to start. If wrists bother you, you can always pop up to knuckles. Make sure you're not locked out through the elbows, so there's just that little invisible softness. And you want to really keep that knee lifted as you do this. Really engage through the glutes and the core. We'll hold external rotation and lift and lower. Let's go. So ankles cross and lift. So that foot is over to the left. Make it really intentional, really squeeze, little pause at the top. We'll find internal rotation up next, so that foot will go out to the right. Let's go. So now windshield wiper, foot over, and you lower and lift. This one might feel a little awkward. Just think of wrapping that thigh, rotating that thigh in towards midline, and still really squeeze into that outer side of your butt when you lift the knee up. Neutral spine, so make sure your head isn't hanging down, your gaze isn't at your knees, so length through the back of the neck. All right, let's turn this into the hydrant motion. So the knee kind of crosses over to the left and then swings up and out to the right. We'll finish with that hold. Knee bent or advanced, we'll kick the leg straight. Really reaching it over to the right, let's go. Swing it open into that hydrant and hold with it lifted and pressing out to the right. Maybe the leg straightens. Breathe, maintain that core engagement, push the mat away, and rest. 30 seconds. All right, one final time through. So just over 2 minutes of work, and then we're gonna come to stand for the final flow. So one more time through this on the left, you got it. There's a bit of repetition with Pilates Mini Flows classes because we have such a specific focus and we really dial in on it. So if you don't like the repetition, I would suggest my Pilates mat classes instead. Let's find tabletop. There's value in both. Left knee comes up to that donkey kick position and we windshield wiper. If wrists need a little break, try knuckles or come down to your forearms. We'll hold external rotation, so the foot will sweep over to the right. Hold external rotation, lower, ankles kind of cross, and lift. Really think about how you're lifting. You're not lifting through the spine by arching your back. You're lifting through the glutes and those external rotators. Normal to feel your supporting side working as well, okay? This outer hip is stabilizing on our right side. All right, at the top, we're going to find internal rotation now. Lower, so it's kind of knee to calf, and lift. Turn it into the swing. So the knee crosses over to the right, and then it swings up and out to the left. Getting external rotation, internal rotation, down and across, up and out. You have that hold coming up. A challenging 15 seconds, but then you're done with the second flow. Let's go. Hold that hydrant position. Reach, reach, reach to the left. Maybe the leg kick straight. Engage through your core. Woo, and done. All right, you have a long recovery. I'm going to show you a preview of our third and final flow. So for our third and final flow, we're going to be standing, and you're going to want your stool, chair, whatever you're using to put your hands on for balance. To start, it's going to be a single leg deadlift, keeping our hips square. We then just change it a little bit so that as you go into that deadlift, we drop the hip down, finding internal rotation within that stationary hip joint, and then we come up square. Then you can probably guess where we're going, same deal, but as we go into that deadlift, we're going to peel open through the hips, finding external rotation in that supporting hip joint. We then hold in the hinge position, and you just move between the two, internal, external, peeling that pelvis open and closed. We're going to finish with the pelvis open, and we're going to drop into a warrior lunge position. It's going to be a little push off there, lift the heel, pivot into a square lunge, little push off there, and continuing to open and close like that. All right, same deal. We're doing this one 4 times. It's your final flow. Let's do it. So we're going to start facing our stool. Right leg will be the focus. So it's going to be our base leg. You're going to plant down through that right foot, spread out through the toes, find a nice supportive base, and then just come lightly to the ball of the left foot. Again, if you want, though, you can do a full knee drive, up to you. So this first one, when we keep the hips square, you may not have to bring your hands to the stool or whatever you're using. Hips are going to stay square. We're going to slide those hips back. You unlock through the standing right knee, and you hinge it forward into your single leg deadlift. Exhale, brace through the core for balance. Come up to the knee drive, or the foot can plant, up to you. Very important that you are not locked out through this standing right knee, okay? That goes for this whole series. So coming up, we're going to keep this deadlift motion going, but we're going to find internal rotation. So as we hinge forward, we're going to take the left hip and we'll drop it down. Let's go. As if we could tap it to the inside of our right thigh. And then we come up and we square it off. So I would recommend hands coming to something. Drop the left hip down, internal rotation as you lower. So there's that little rotation over to the right. Come up square. So we're rotating the pelvis around this right thigh. Drop the left hip down. Bring that left hip across as if it could tap your right inner thigh. So coming up next, we're just going to switch it. Instead of dropping the left hip down, we're going to peel the left hip open. External rotation around our right thigh. All right, let's do it. Switch it up to external. So as you hinge forward, we're going to peel this left hip open. And then as we come to stand, we square it off. So still challenging the hip joint, but because there's an element of balance, you're going to feel your lower leg really working as well. Peel it open as if we could stack the left hip on top of the right. Our next change is we're going to hold in this hinged position, and we'll just do those pelvis peels, open and close. All right, hold it. So you're going to pull that left hip down and across to the right. You're going to peel that left hip open on top of the right. External, internal rotation, hands on your stool for support, unlocked through your right knee, little bend to it. Coming up next, we are going to plant this left foot on the ground, coming into a lunge position. We'll still stay hinged forward. We'll find a warrior lunge, so we'll be open through the hips. So let's peel open through the hips and then rock back so we're in this warrior lunge. Little push off on the right foot. Now square the hips, lifting your back left heel, little push off. Now, if you don't want to do the push off, you can just pulse, okay? If you want to keep it more low impact, then just pulse this leg, keep the foot on the ground. Almost done. Leaning forward with the torso, so shoulders over front knee. And rest. Woo, you can roll out through the ankle. All right, so we're gonna do that on the other side. You don't have to move your stool, but again, I just want to give you guys the best view so you can see what I'm doing. So now the left leg will be our base leg, going through that whole thing on the other side. Facing the stool, we spread out through the left toes, ground down through that foot, and we just come to the ball of the right foot. Arms reach forward. You can bring them to the stool, but maybe this first one you go for just balance and you don't. When the pelvis stays square, it's way easier to balance. Hinge it forward into your single leg deadlift and bring it up. Again, you can bring it all the way up to a knee drive if you really want to challenge balance, or when you come up to stand, just bring the ball of your foot to the floor. So our first variation is coming up. It'll be internal. So we'll take this right hip and we will drop it down and pull it across towards the left thigh. All right, let's do it. Internal rotation. So it's the same basic movement, but now we take this right hip, we drop it down and across. Hands will probably want to come to the stool. So we're internally rotated within that left hip joint, and then you come up squaring things off. External is up next. Okay, external now. So now as you hinge it forward, you're going to take this right hip and you're going to peel it open, kind of coming into this half moon if you take yoga. Hinge it forward, check in on that left knee, you're unlocked through it, peeling that right hip open on top of the left. We'll hold in the hinge position up next. All right, hold in the hinge position, and we just rotate that pelvis, pull the right hip down and across towards the left inner thigh, peel it open. Hands are on the stool for support, but they're light. Unlocked through our standing left knee. Stay energized through the right leg, really reach that heel back. We're going to come into our warrior lunge up next for those little push-offs or pulses if you want to keep it even more low impact. All right, peel open through the hips, rock it back, landing in that warrior lunge. Front left foot pushes off, square the hips, lifting your back heel. Push off the front leg. You can always pulse instead of push off like that. Rest. Okay, we're halfway there. So this third and final flow, we're kind of switching it up. It's the same movements, but in the first two flows, you might notice we are really moving the leg within the hip joint. Now we're moving the hips around the leg. It's still accomplishing the same thing, that movement within the hip joint, but just with a different kind of controller of where the movement's coming from. All right, so we ground down through the right foot, come to the ball of your left foot. We'll start with the deadlift, keeping the hips square. Let's go. Unlock through that right knee. You can come up to a full knee drive or just tap the ball of the foot lightly to the floor. One more time, each leg, and then you are done with this class. Okay, we take it to internal rotation now. So as you hinge forward, you're going to take this left hip, you're going to drop it down and across over to the right inner thigh. And then we come back up, squaring it off. Take your time through this. Finding that internal rotation within the right hip joint. All right, now take it to external rotation. So as you hinge forward, we peel the left hip open. So we're opening ourselves up to the left. And come to stand. Ooh, my lower leg is talking to me. We will hold in the hinge up next. Hold in the hinge, and we peel that pelvis open and closed. Left hip to right inner thigh. Left hip peels open. Unlocked through our right leg. Keep reaching your hips back. We'll find our lunge up next. All right, so we rock back, landing in that warrior lunge. Push off the front foot, pivot your square, push off. It's just a little push off or a pulse if you'd rather. Peel the pelvis open. Square it off. Woo, rest. Okay, 30 seconds. Going through this just one more time, okay? So you have 3 minutes of work to go. 3 minutes, is that right? Am I doing the math right? I haven't added the timer in yet. Yeah. All right, so left foot is going to be the base leg. Spread out through the toes, ground down through the foot. Facing our stool or whatever it is we're gonna use to balance, but maybe you don't use it for the first 30 seconds where we're just doing the square deadlift. So let's do it. When you hinge forward, long neutral spine, and we're not rounding forward with the shoulders, so stay open through the chest. And as you come up tall, you're thinking engaging through the core, firing into the backside glutes, but you're not shoving your hips forward and dumping into your lower back. All right, internal rotation up next. So now, next time you hinge forward, you're going to take this right hip and you're going to pull it across over to your left inner thigh. Come up, square it off. All right, now we go external. So as you hinge, you take this right hip, we peel it open, opening ourselves up to the right. Come up, exhale, brace to the core for stability, come to stand. Take it forward and open. Check in with that left knee, you're not locking out through it. All right, let's hold the hinge position. Peel that pelvis closed and open. Right hip towards left inner thigh. Right hip peels open. Light with the hands, they're just there for stability. You have one more variation to get through, you got this. We'll rock back into that lunge position for our little push-offs and pivots. Let's go, rock back into that warrior lunge. You push off the front, pivot. Peel the pelvis open, little push off, square it off, little push off, you got it. Final few seconds of work, cool downs on the other side. And done, awesome work. Oh, you can roll out through the ankles. I'm gonna bring you through a quick cool down, awesome work. Let's start with a figure four. So let's take our right ankle, cross it over the left thigh. Hands can come to your stool, and then take your hips back and sit into them. I don't know about you guys, but my hips are feeling so good after that class. Let's come up and take it over to the other side. Left crosses over right. Send the hips down and back. So we're going to come into a lunge position up next. So you can keep your right foot planted as it is, and then just take your left knee back, coming down to the mat. You want to square your hips, gentle squeeze into your back left side glutes, and then we're going to press the hips forward for a hip flexor stretch on this left side. So this class is great if you're a runner, if you spin a lot, or just if you sit a lot. If the hips are feeling cranky, work like this is so good for it. Now from here, I want you to lean forward a little bit, send your butt back so we're in a bit of a hinge. You're going to take your back left shin and you're going to hop it outward, okay? So now we're internally rotated within this hip joint, and then all you're going to do is come back upright. Think of squeezing into the glutes and pressing the hips forward. So we're coming back into this hip extension position, but we're in an internally rotated position. So a little funky, but we got external rotation stretch with the figure four. I want us to get internal here. If this is not feeling good, back off, okay? Come back into a little hinge, undo the rotation. All right, we're going to take it over to the other side. So now your left foot steps forward, right knee is down, square the hips, gentle squeeze the back right butt cheek, and then press those hips forward, hip flexor stretch. So if you enjoyed class, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I post new classes all the time. Also, while I am continuing the effort to grow my channel, I would so appreciate your support through super thanks. It is a little button on the bottom bar. It's a heart with a little dollar sign, and it's basically YouTube's version of tipping. That is so appreciated. All right, now back off a little bit, send your hips back, lean forward a little bit, and we're gonna find internal rotation. So take your right shin, hop it out to the right, okay? And then in this kind of awkward position, we're gonna come upright, open through the front of the hips, squeezing into the glutes. If this is not feeling okay, don't do it. Come back parallel with this back shin. And if leaving super thanks is not an option for you, just sharing my classes with your friends, with your family, or on social media helps me so much and is so greatly appreciated. All right, let's back it off. Come through center. Let's come up to standing. Finish with one breath together. Inhale, arms are going to sweep up. Exhale, let it go. And that is your class. Awesome job today. Hope your hips are feeling good after that one. And I will see you next time.